Hi class, I'm going to do a little video on the different types of loops. So what I've done, and again, just to also build in some familiarity with Eclipse as well. So you can see here I created a scanner object underlined in red, mouse over, I can import it, so I don't have to type that. I'm going to generate a random number from 1 to 100. Again, mouse over, and I can select import java.util.random. So that's all done. So now a while loop to output numbers from 1 to whatever the random number is. Maybe I'll even call it n, 1 to n. So I would say something like, so in order to do this, I need to start with a value. So I'm going to have an int, let's say I equals 1. So that's my starting value. And then I'll say while I is less than or equal to n, whatever that random number is. And I'll say system.out.print. So if I do print, it will all show up on one line. There'll be no new line character after the print statement. So then I'll say I, and I'll put in a couple spaces. So while loop, and then a Boolean condition. Boolean conditions, just like you saw with the if statements. So I run this, and it's not stopping. Why isn't it stopping? So I'm going to stop it with this clicking here. So in order for this to eventually, so what we want in a loop, in a Boolean condition, is we want this eventually to be false. Well, if I is starting at 1, and we're never changing I, then, and n is not 1, this condition will always be true. So what we need to do is we need to increase I. So I could say I equals I plus 1. And another way to say that in Java is I plus equals 1. Or if it's just adding 1, there's a shortcut I plus plus. So with this one, even if we wanted to add 5 or 6, we could change this to 5 or 6. So now if I run this, so all I did was add this one line so that eventually this Boolean condition will be true. So you can see then, this implies that the random number was 11. I run it again, and this time it goes till 35. And if you wanted to see what the random number was, you could also print it out. N equals plus n. So you run this. You can see n was 10, so it output the numbers from 1 till 10. I run it again, 21. So it works. That's great. So this is with a while loop. Now a for loop, another word for a for loop, it's a counted loop. So anything you have in a for loop, you can write in a while loop. So a for loop is like a short form of a while loop. So what we have is we use the keyword for, and then we have the initializer. So in that case, this is the initialization here. And what we're going to do is we put that in the for statement at the beginning. I'm going to use a different variable name than I. So that, and I'll say, let's say I int j equals 1. And the next thing we put in a for loop is the Boolean condition. So here I would say keep going as long as j is less than or equal to n. And then what I'll do is the last line of the while loop goes here, and this is what's called your increment or your decrement portion. So I would say j plus plus, which is the same as adding 1. And then I would have, let's say, so j plus and a couple spaces, just like we did before. And I'll get rid of the ln. Now the thing is, if I run this like this, everything is in one long line, both of them together. So what if I want a blank line in between? I could do syso, and I could do that a couple times. So this would create one blank line, and this creates another blank line. So I run this, and you can see n was 21, and it prints them both out the same. Let's say we also wanted to add up the sum of them. So I could say, let's say int sum equals 0. So when we're adding something up, we start at 0. And then when I print it, I'm also going to add whatever the current value of I is to sum. So that's the same as sum equals sum plus I. And I could do the same thing in the for loop, but I'm going to initialize sum back to 0. Because right now I don't have the sum of all these numbers. And then I would add here, let's say sum plus equals j. Now the thing is, this line here will always be the last line in the loop. It's done for you. You don't see it though. And then what I would do, I might say here, what I'm going to do, remember /n, what does /n do? Gives us a new line character. Sum equal, I didn't pause long enough. And if I take this same line and I output it after this loop, you'll see the sums will be the same. Well, they better be. You can see, it was 48 this time. And there's a short way to do summing up the numbers from 1 to n without a loop, but that's for another time. So that's it for now. You've seen a while loop and a for loop. Next, I'll do a do while loop in my next video.